So, hi everyone. I guess we're live. This is so exciting. Thank you so much for joining us for our very first live stream from the Florida School of Massage community. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Christina Polnyj, and I'm here with Mary Reis. And behind the scenes, we have Sarah Thompson and Chrissy Martinez, who I'm so thankful for because without them, we would not be here. And like a lot of us, we've been very motivated and inspired to get creative and find ways to stay in community and in connection with one another through these extraordinary times we're finding ourselves in. And of course, right now we're not at school, but we're coming to you from our respective homes. And I know we may have a variety of listeners from all different backgrounds here as well, and some of you are very familiar with our community. And for those of you who are brand new, I'd just like to say welcome. And yes, we are a massage school, and yet it is so much more than that. And many of our past students, our graduates, continue to return to Gainesville, where we're located, for continuing education, or just dip into a place of ongoing learning of not only body work, but also the exploration of our inner world through the vehicle of touch, awareness, and also communication, both verbal and nonverbal. So many of us are having even more time to turn inward right now, and we've really been looking forward to this time together and having a lot of fun planning what we would talk about and thinking about what may be of interest to you. And so today we're going to have about an hour together, and we're going to be talking about intuition and tuning into how intuition plays a role in massage, but also in life. And what we'll do is we'll reserve some time for your questions and comments towards the last 15 minutes or so. And I know you're either joining us on Facebook or YouTube, so go ahead and type your comments or questions into the chat, and Sarah and Chrissy will be monitoring those for us. So for those of you I don't know, again, my name is Christina, and I've been a part of the Florida School of Massage family since 1992. And I've taught a variety of subjects over the years, and I'm so happy and delighted to be joined by my friend and fellow instructor, Mary Reis. So,
hi, everybody. I'm really glad to be here. And Christina, you can continue. I don't want to interrupt you.
Hi, Mary.
Hi there.
So for those of you again, who I don't know, it's been such a really fun experiment, and we've been growing in this vehicle of going live. And Mary has been a part of our community since 1993. And Mary, you're a massage therapist and an instructor here at the Florida School of Massage, and you've taught a variety of different things over the years: sports massage, cranial work, connective tissue work. And I know that we have some listeners who may be new to the Florida School of Massage, and of course some listeners know you very well. So before we move into our discussion on intuition, for those of you who may not know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and also what led you to study massage?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, it's funny when I think about my background, I didn't have any kind of a professional background before I came to massage school. I came soon after I graduated from college, and what really brought me here was, this ties into our talk, the subject of our talk today about intuition. I don't know that I would have called it that at the time, but what brought me to the Florida School of Massage was kind of a little bit of a winding road. And it started when I was in my junior year of college, and I was in a really bad head-on collision with a drunk driver. And it was a very frightening experience. My best friend and I, it actually transformed both of us.
Wow.
Because we had the experience of realizing that, okay, we lived through something that was just really frightening. And we realized we could have died. And for the two of us, it sort of set the both of us off on different paths. She felt a calling to join the convent, and she became a nun. And she's been a nun ever since, 92.
Wow.
It really took her on a path. It was a real spiritual awakening for her, and it was a similar thing for me. I started asking myself, okay, if I could die at any time, what do I want to do with my life? What do I really want to do as I move forward? And so as I started sitting with that question, I literally felt like there were stepping stones being put in front of me. And so it was just, a conversation with a friend, a book recommendation, and then this course that I took. I took a course when I was in college. I was a psychology major, and I had been thinking that I wanted to go on and study counseling. I thought I would be going to graduate school. And when I took a class, there was a class I took called Humanistic and Transpersonal Psychology, and it was taught by the Professor Charles Tart. And the class was really unique in that it was an upper level course, and the professor only allowed about 24, 25 students in the classroom. So it was not a lecture hall setting. It was a small classroom, and he arranged the desks in a circle. And we would start class with some kind of meditation, guided visualization, or a chanting. And our readings in the class, one of our assignments was to read essentially about the world religions. Because transpersonal psychology is all about the psychology of that which is beyond our physical bodies. That was sort of the foray into the world religions. And so as I started reading this book, each chapter was on a different religion, and having grown up Catholic, I had some exposure to religion. I grew up Catholic. And as I was reading each of these chapters from really diverse religions around the world, I was seeing a common theme. And that theme of, it's in us. They were all talking about the same things in a different way. And it was very striking to me. And it was at that point, because we would start with meditation, chanting, we were looking at different ways of being in connection with a power that is beyond us. At some point, I got really interested in the body and how the body plays a role in that. And I started having the thought that I think I want to go to massage school. And so I still had a couple years left of school, but that thought about massage school, I'm like, that might be the way to do it. Because I knew I eventually wanted to do something that really was bridging body, mind in some way. And
that's so interesting.
Yeah. So I had that sense. Something became really clear during that class. And so that stayed with me. And so different things happened as life went on. And I did a cross-country bike trip when I graduated from college. And our trip went through really the middle of the country. And we went from San Francisco to Washington, D.C. And on the way, we stopped in Boulder, Colorado. And Boulder had all these schools that I wanted to go to. They had the Naropa Institute for graduate studies. They had a great massage school, and I went and toured the school, and they have the Rolf Institute. And I thought, oh my God, I have found where I want to be. And then the trip continued, and I kept that in my heart that, wow, I really think I want to be in Boulder. And I ended up in Gainesville. And a friend of mine said, you really need to come see the massage school in Gainesville. And I said, okay, I'll do a tour, but really I'm going to Boulder. I'm just going to do this. I'm just kind of going through the motions. So I had a meeting with Paul Davenport, who at the time, he was the owner and director of the school. And he took me on my tour, and I saw the grounds, and I thought, wow, it's really beautiful here. It's very different from the Boulder setting, which was sort of in a strip shopping center, had a very different feel and look to it. But still, I'm thinking, I'm going to Boulder. And so Paul and I are sitting in his office, and he's talking about the school and sort of the orientation of the school. And he starts talking about Charles Tart, not having known that I studied with Tart. And actually, Tart ended up being my favorite professor in college.
Wow.
And so I'm sitting there in his office, and he starts talking about Charles Tart, and I just kind of went like, what? Like, there was this like internal reorientation to what in the world? And as he kept talking, I had the physical sensation of roots growing out of me.
Wow.
And it was very distinct. And so it's those physical senses for me which there's like this internal physical yes that happens for me, and that's what I can say brought me to the Florida School of Massage.
That is so fascinating and such an amazing story. And Mary, I have to say, it sounds like intuition led you to the Florida School of Massage.
Right.
Yeah. And you said so many things that were so interesting. You talked about sitting in a circle, and you talked about these stepping stones being laid out before you. And I know that frequently at the massage school we sit in circle too, so that's just an interesting synchronicity that happened for you. Yeah. And I'm curious, like for our listeners, if you could talk a little bit about what that was like for you, even before coming to massage school, that first time like you sat in circle with people and practiced meditation or as you said, chanting or the different types of things. Like, what was that like for you as you were just a college student at the time, so probably in your early 20s, right?
Yeah. I definitely had an openness. Like, I was curious. I was, the class itself, that humanistic and transpersonal psychology class, when I would read the assignments, it was like I was reading. The words I was reading seemed to put things into perspective. It was like I was reading my own thoughts on the page, and I had never had that experience before. So because of that, I was just like a sponge, ready for whatever that class had to bring. So it was a little disorienting to be sitting in a circle with people I did not know. That was a little intimidating at first. But the professor really just put me at ease, and I think really put my classmates at ease. And in the moment, I don't know what it was that he said. I can't remember, but I just remember feeling a sense of safety in that classroom.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you also talked about a knowing, and feeling that inside of yourself. And it's so interesting, when we were getting ready for this talk, I actually looked up the definition of intuition just out of curiosity. And it talks about like the ability to know something without conscious reasoning or thinking. And I love that definition. It's kind of exactly what you're describing right now as well. And I'm just wondering if maybe you could talk a little bit more about that, like that feeling of knowing.
I guess where I can start, let's see. I can think of things throughout my life where that was just there. Like, I was always interested in sports. I always wanted to play and be involved in some way physically. You know, I was not an inside kid that sat around. I was outside playing with whoever would play with me. And I grew up on a cul-de-sac, and we had a bunch of neighbors, and we would play organized sports. We just play in the street. But I feel like that knowing goes back to that. It's like, it was just what I wanted. I didn't even question it. I can go on and talk about, you know, when I was trying to choose a college, I grew up in Southern California. And I applied to different schools around California, and I visited some of them. And then I took a trip up to Davis. And when I was on the campus, there was just something about the campus that I loved. And I remember my parents talking with my parents about where I really wanted to go. And I knew I didn't want to go to Long Beach State. Not that there was anything wrong with Long Beach State, even though it was really close to the house. There was something about the Davis campus that just grabbed me. It grabbed my attention. I thought it was beautiful. There was something about the feeling there. And it was just, of course, that's where I wanted to go.
Yes, yeah.
And so it's like in the moment, when that knowing is there, there's a quality of yes, there's a quality of awe, there's a quality of allowing, and it's sort of magical.
Love that.
And it's not always magical.
Right.
You know, but the bigger times in my life where it has felt kind of pretty damn magical, I'm like, this is incredible. And then there's the more subtle times where it's just something, I don't know. It's like a yes inside.
Yes. Well, you're saying so many wonderful things, and I'm really struck by how, as a young woman, you were following your intuition without necessarily calling it intuition or thinking about what the word meant or practicing using your intuition or anything like that. And I'm wondering if you could say more for our listeners about how now, all these years later, how intuition actually plays a role in your massage practice.
Yeah. So it's really easy for me to talk about intuition when I talk about the cranial work that I do, the craniosacral work. There are different names for that style of work. You know, in the chiropractic profession, it's known as sacro-occipital technique, or SOT. In the massage field, people know about craniosacral therapy. That's another version of the same thing.
Yes.
And there's many different styles of craniosacral work that exist, and all of it has descended from a branch of medicine that's known as osteopathy, and cranial osteopathy is where all this work developed. And in this approach to work, what I'm practicing now is known, the title of it is Biodynamic Cranial Touch, or Stillness Touch. And in practicing this work, you can practice it in the massage room, but it also is a practice that's just part of life. And so in the massage room, before making contact, after the intake is done with a client, and before making contact, my client will get on the table and they lay down. And I then go stand somewhere in the room and just get quiet. I let the chatter that's going in my mind gradually come to quiet, and then it'll pop back up, and then it's all right. It'll ebb and flow. But I try to get to that place where I feel quiet, and in doing that, in order to quiet my mind, what I have to do is I have to really drop into sensing within my own body. And that sounds simple. And for a lot of people, that's one of the hardest things to do. I know it's a really challenging thing for me because my head is such a comfortable place to live.
Yes.
But as I am able to drop down into the sensing, there's something about that sensing state that seems to be an opening for what you might call intuition, or maybe it's more of a connection to that more instinctual nature that resides within all of us.
Mm-hmm.
But it entails getting out of the head or slowly allowing that chatter to come to quiet. And it's a conscious effort for me to sense within, and to sense within in a way that's not me up here looking down. Oh, okay, there's my foot and there's my knee. And like, it's not this, it's this really dropping into sensing.
Yeah.
And in the process of doing that, it seems to open something to this instinctual, intuitive nature that we all have. It's within us all. And when we get there, when we're in that state, it allows me to then be sensing within myself and include in my awareness my client on the table. And when I do that, I will just briefly, just almost out of the side of my eyes, almost with peripheral vision, I just kind of scan head to toe on my client. And there is some point that will catch my attention. And I feel a quality of resonance inside. For me, it's often in my gut or in my heart space. And it's that, yes, it's that, oh, yes. But it's the not looking for it. It's not that I open my eyes and I'm looking and, oh, yes, that's where I'm going to go because this is what they were talking about in the intake.
Yeah.
It's looking, scanning, and, oh, yes, I feel that in my body.
Yes. Yeah.
Wait for that sound to go by.
I'm outside of my porch. I think it's an airplane.
Oh my gosh. They're back in the sky.
They are.
So it is this quality of, oh, there it is. And it's something that shows up without me looking for it. And it's that, oh, okay, I feel that. Yes. And that's where I go and I make the contact. So it's easy for me to talk about intuition when I talk about the cranial work. When it comes to massage work, the intuition is a little less obvious in that I think it's really sort of blended. It's somehow blended within the way that I practice. And sometimes it's more disconnected, you know. I'm sure everybody who practices massage work can identify with that feeling of, or that knowing of, wow, I'm really distracted today. It's really hard for me to not be thinking about whatever is happening in my life or some event that's coming or, you know, the list of things, you know. Those times happen. But there's also those times where in massage, just being so absorbed in what I'm doing, I'm not even thinking about what I'm doing, and my hands are just doing it. And they're finding these places that I'm not even conscious that it's happening. It's just happening. But it's that, and I know, again, like people in massage school, people who practice, we have all experienced these times where we're in practice and it's as if nothing could be better in the whole world. So fully absorbed in that moment. And it's in those times where their clients, whether it's right there in the moment or it's after the session, they're like, wow, whatever you just did, that is amazing.
What a wonderful feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's this absorption, this like, you know, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, I love all the things you're saying. It's very well said, and there's so many interesting pieces to your story and the type of work you're doing. And one of the things that I know students come in with a lot, or a lot of us right now are currently feeling too, is that we are in our heads a lot. We're thinking about all the different things like going on in the world, when maybe we're looking at the news more, or there's just a lot of external stimulation coming in. And one of the things that students so often talk about, especially in the beginning of our program, is how do I turn my head off, or how do I know, for lack of a better word, how do I know that I'm listening to my intuition and not in my head? So I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about that, your own progression, and I think sometimes what we talk about is how intuition is like this thing outside of ourselves
Right.
that we have to go and grab, or
Yeah.
that we have to somehow attain intuition.
Uh-huh.
Um, and yeah, so anyway, I'd just love to hear your thoughts on that.
So I would say that my experience with intuition um, usually comes from during those times when I'm not in my head. It's like I'm not even thinking about it. Where to begin? How do I start this?
I guess wherever your intuition leads you.
Yeah. I had something when there was a thought occurring to me, then it floated away. Well,
Yeah.
I guess what I could say is that um, the practice of quieting the mind is huge.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that is essential.
Yeah.
When I can not be achieving, trying to be a certain way, but really
Mm-hmm.
just sitting in presence. So, like you mentioned, I'm starting to catch where I was going when you were talking. Like during these times,
Yeah.
there is, there's never certainty with life,
Mm-hmm.
but we have less certainty now than we've ever had in our lives. I mean, I think I
Yeah.
speak for all of us here on the call.
Yeah.
Um, and so, with that lack of certainty, for some of us, when we don't feel safe, we go right up here. This is where
Mm-hmm.
we live.
Yes.
And for me, during this process of living during a pandemic and staying in touch with the news and latest things that are coming out, and what do we need to be doing to ensure our own safety, and what's happening throughout the world, and what's on the horizon, I can feel what happens in me. It's this leaving of my body, and it's this focus on all this stuff up here. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel myself being pulled away, and I have to consciously recognize what's happening. I feel this pull, or I recognize that I am really lost in thought. I'm going down a trail and I'm living there and I'm not living here. And
Mm.
so it's this, for me, the process of getting in touch with intuition is an unconscious process in a way. Because
Yeah.
if I think about it too much, I get all, oh my God, intuition. Oh my God, it's so exciting. But I have to drop that. I have to drop it because it takes me up into my head. So it's this dropping in, getting quiet, not trying to bring information in. It's just being here. It's just being here with my dog
Mm-hmm.
and being with her and letting thoughts come in to my mind and go out and just watching them. I
Mm-hmm.
can be doing the dishes again. That there's thoughts that are going, and it's not that I have to stop them and push them away and live at a distance from them, because that's not possible. They're just going to keep coming back up with greater and greater insistence, and they're going to pester me.
Yes.
But I can be standing and doing the dishes and notice the thoughts, notice attachments,
Yes.
and let them go.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's that being out on my bike, being on the Gainesville Hawthorne Rail Trail, and oh my gosh, is it beautiful out. This has been an exquisite spring. And today I'm looking out the window and it's incredible outside.
It's true.
Just really allowing myself to be in that and just getting lost in it, and the breeze and the coolness today and that incredible blue sky that we don't get a lot when the humidity is here. We can't see it because of the moisture in the air clouds it. But getting more absorbed in those daily activities the atmosphere, all that's around. It's allowing all of that and just sort of being immersed in it. And I say that, and I hear myself saying that, and I sound that sounds amazing. And I know how much I live in my head. You know, I in no way, pretend to be perfect in that. But it's just that the joy that I find when those times come, it's like this self-reinforcing practice. And it shows up so much in massage school.
And I love what you say about not being perfect as well, because I think that is probably comforting to a lot of us who are listening, and just in thinking about intuition and calming our minds down, it just seems to me like it's this ongoing muscle that we're growing into every day. There's always a new opportunity to practice that.
Yeah.
And I was curious too, for like I know some of our current students are listening too, and I was curious if you could share with them, like, if perhaps you have a memory of a situation early in your practice, or really any time in your practice, where maybe you first were aware that you were completely present and in your intuition, or perhaps you were led somewhere that you had no idea you would be going. So anything like that may pop into your mind.
Yeah, I like the word, when you use the word, how I knew I was present. I think that's what you said.
Yeah.
Present, or in my intuition.
Yeah.
I'm going to drop the intuition part for me, because that takes me in my head. But that present, like when I knew I was present, I'm not really sure. It's a palpable thing.
Yeah.
And I think I recognize it more in retrospect. It's like, I'm present. I don't even know I'm present. I'm just here. And then, oh, now I'm not present. Oh, I'm thinking about this. Oh, wow. I was actually quite present right before this. It's almost in retrospect thing. So that's one way. And on a slightly parallel topic is the intuition part, because the intuition is a tricky word for me. Being in intuition is like, it's a lofty thing. It takes me into my head. Yes. But I can think of a guided exercise that I learned early on in my cranial training, where we were encouraged to bring to class an object that we had had for at least 10 years. And when we brought it into the classroom, we brought it in hidden. We didn't want our classmates to see it. So this was an intentional exercise. I'll preface it with this. This was an intentional exercise to help us as students realize that we do have intuitive capabilities, that intuition is not something that only like psychics or certain people have. It was an exercise to help us really get in touch with it. So we brought this object, we kept it hidden, and then when it came time for the exercise to happen, we were broken off into small groups of, I think it was about 6 people or 8 people in a small group. And we sat in a circle, and the instructor guided us through a centering process, sensing into our bodies, feeling your feet, feeling your legs, feeling the air on the outside of the skin, feeling the air as it brushes these parts of your body, but also feeling that part of your body from the inside. So feeling the blood pulsing, feeling vibration, just feeling the sensations both from within and from without. And he did this systematically throughout the body and brought us into our heart space. And then what he had us do is, with our eyes closed and one by one, each of us placed our object in the center of the circle. And then, after everybody had done that in secret, it was under a blanket, so all of our objects were there. And then he continued to guide us through a meditation. And then what he had us do is an assistant pulled the blanket back, we opened our eyes, and then he guided us through the process of intuition. It's that part of us, it shows up before we even ask the question. So he had us scan the circle of objects and just take them in. Just look at them. Notice what catches your attention. You know, it could be any detail about it. And then he had us kind of start to narrow in on an object. And after we, as a small group, you know, made sure we didn't both have our eyes on the same thing, you know, we kind of judiciously separated them out. Then he guided us through a meditation where we took the object in our hands and we held it, we just held it in our hands for a period of time. And he asked a series of questions, you know, like, I don't even remember what the questions were. But what I recall was that he had us hold the object in our hands. He had us hold the object in our hands near our abdomen. He would ask us a series of questions and we would write down our answers. And then we would do the same thing with the object in our heart space. He had us do it with the same object in our throat. I think we even may have gone up to the forehead, the top of the head. And for those people who have never studied any type of the chakras, essentially he was taking us through the chakras and holding the object next to us and asking questions. We would write our answers. And in the process of this exercise, when we were done with all of that, we had this page full of answers, maybe a couple of pages full of answers. And then what we were to do is one by one, we went and I would say, okay, so here's the object I chose. And these are the pieces of information that I got from it. And I don't exactly remember what the object was. I think it was a necklace, but I know it was a piece of jewelry. And it's been so many years now, it's hard for me to recall. But I remember I said like, I think I said 70s. I had written down 70s or 1970s, I think is what I put down. And I had put down throat. That there was something in my throat that connected with this object. And so I went through everything I had listed on the page, and then the person who that object belonged to then told me about the object. And she said that it was actually a piece of jewelry that her mother used to wear when this other student was a child, and this student was a child during the 1970s. And there was something about her mother died like by strangulation or something, or there was some kind of throat, and I was just blown away. Because for me, going into this exercise, I had no confidence that I was going to be able to do it, that I was going to be able to get information about an object and have some insight. And it was so incredibly striking. There were more details that I can't remember now that I was amazed that I was able to pull out in this exercise. It was quite eye-opening and relieving at the same time to know that I actually did have that capability. And I don't pretend to go about my life trying to decipher things about people, you know, as I'm interacting with them. That's not it. But the exercise was a great exercise. And it kind of opened a door to a way of sensing that was really valuable for the rest of my education and practice, and continues to be.
That's such a great story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm really struck by a couple of things you said. One was how you went through these different areas of your body with these objects. And I know there's a lot of discussion and study and research going on now in the scientific community about our second brain actually being in our gut. And I think so many of us can relate to that feeling of a gut instinct, or just having this feeling of knowing something and having that be our guiding light. And it sounds like that's what you're really talking about. And when I think of our students, and I know you as an instructor have this experience with students too, I know that students are often having these experiences, they're sensing, they're not only are we practicing sensing our clients, but really part of the massage school journey is really about sensing ourselves.
Yeah.
And I know for me as a young person, that was so amazing to be actually practicing sensing myself. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about some of your experiences in the classroom with students learning what that's like to sense themselves, and also how to work with that type of nonverbal communication that they're experiencing, and then how to articulate or verbalize what it is, and how to actually show up for themselves as well as showing up for the client that they're practicing on.
Yeah, I think this is such a key piece because especially the way our society has evolved with, especially during this time, we have the internet. We are able to connect with people. There is so much information available to us. You can learn so much watching, listening, being exposed to new ideas.
Yes.
But the thing that's really unique about being in the classroom is that you actually have to apply it. So you can have all kinds of knowledge up here. You can know that, okay, in connective tissue therapy, we work with very little lube, and we just put a teeny tiny bit on our hands. We just kind of wipe a little tiny bit on the client, and then you'd go really slow. Okay.
I'm just positive that some of our listeners might not know what lube is.
Oh, yes. So lube in this situation is shea butter or cocoa butter. You just put the tiniest little bit on your hands. There's almost no sheen or anything. It's the tiniest little bit. And you can know that that's how you have to practice it. And the idea is that with connective tissue therapy, you're with heat, with the friction, because you're using so little lube, you're not slipping. There's so little lube that there's this heat that's happening between your hands and the client's body, and it helps the fascia to actually go from a more gel or solid state to a more liquid state, or actually more solid state to I can't remember. There's a term, Mara Brady would know it, and I'm blanking on it, of course. But anyway, the tissue starts to warm up and soften, and it brings your hands along. Okay? So you can know that without ever having put your hands on somebody. But it isn't until you try to do it that you really learn it. And the awareness piece is so key. And so when I'm working with students in the classroom, I might see somebody trying to do this down the back stroke in connective tissue. The down the back stroke in connective tissue looks really similar to how it looks in Swedish massage, where you use a lot of lube. There's a very shiny quality to your hands before you ever put them on the body. You'll slip, it's easy. It's very slidey, slippery stuff. It looks really similar. But one of the hardest things for students to get is that the skills you learned in Swedish massage on how to use oil and massage the body is very different from how you use it in connective tissue therapy. And so a lot of students come in thinking, I've got Swedish. I've had 5 weeks of Swedish. I know how to do this connective tissue thing. I got it. And they go to do the stroke, and they're obviously not comfortable. My role as a teacher is not to come over and say, you're not doing this right. Here's how you do it. My role as a teacher is to come over and say, so how are you doing? And I'll get a variety of answers. Great. Fine. I'm fine. Wow, this is really hard. I'm really struggling. And there's this broad range of answers that I'll get.
Yeah.
And so my job as a teacher is to come over and help you connect with the awareness of your own body. So they might say, oh, I'm fine. And so I could drop it and leave it and let them struggle, and I might let them keep working with it. And I might say, so what do you notice in your body right now? Well, I notice tension. I'm feeling actually a lot of tension in my shoulders. And
Yeah.
and it's actually kind of hard. And I'll say, oh, okay, so it's really possible. This work is all about finding ease in your own body to be able to do it, because that's what's going to allow you to do this for a living long term. There are so many therapists, teachers in our school that have been practicing for 15 years, 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah.
We know it's possible to do this, and to do this in a way that's not taxing, overwhelming on our bodies. And so as the student starts to tune into, oh, this is actually hard and I'm feeling tension here, that's when the door is open, because the student therapist is starting to tune in and allow what they're feeling to be there and to open a dialogue. And so that's where the openness comes. That awareness piece is so key, so key.
That's so fantastic. And I'm sure all of us can relate to that at one point or another. For example, you and I doing a live stream for the first time. Relax into it and feel ourselves and just allow our conversation to flow. And it's amazing how fast the time has gone.
I can't believe it's already
I know,
to an end,
I know, and I'd really like to welcome Sarah into our conversation and just check in with her and see if we have any questions or comments from our listeners, and take these last several minutes that we have together to, just hear what listeners might have to say, comments or questions. Sarah, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Sarah.
Hey, awesome. It's been such a pleasure listening to the conversation. I can speak for myself, so really excited to hear from you all. And I think a good question to go to now might be, as a student or someone thinking about being a student, or maybe somebody who hasn't felt like they've been super connected to intuition in their practice. What advice might you give to somebody who's like, I really don't know. I'm not sure if I know that that's for me, or if I have that.
Not sure if they have that ability to tap into tuition, or they're not sure about how to start the process.
Yeah, like that's maybe outside of my box.
Yeah.
Such a great question. Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what you have to say too, Christina. To me, I think we're so fortunate because the internet exists. And to me, my answer is to sit in silence. And if that is hard for you, go to the internet, and there are so many resources available to you to help give you guided meditations. It's in the quiet that you experience everything. Sometimes it's blissful. Sometimes it's a relief to turn everything off. Yeah. And sometimes it's awful. And all of the stuff that you've been trying to push away comes knocking at your door. And so it's not necessarily an easy thing or an easy practice, but sitting in silence for a period of time where you're not talking with anybody. Maybe you're sitting and looking out the window. You'll have thoughts. Just acknowledge them. Oh, I'm realizing that I still haven't done my to-do list, and it's really catching my attention. Oh, okay, that thought is there. Can I just return to feeling within my skin, noticing my heartbeat, following my breath, feeling the air on my skin. Oh, and there's that thought again. Oh my God, I still have to do that. Okay, there's the thought. It's okay. And I can still have that thought and feel my heartbeat. And I can follow my breath. And I can sense in.
I love that. That's so beautiful. If I were to answer it, it's interesting because I think back to my own experience first coming to the Florida School of Massage and Really, it was the first time in my life where I think I had ever consciously tried to slow myself down and consciously learn things that might help me along my way. I was very aware that I needed a lot of practice. I was
Yeah.
very aware that I was very in my head and, thinking about all the things that I was learning. And it's sort of like life now. It's like that experience doesn't actually go away. Like our minds are such a powerful tool and they serve us in the world and we need them. We need them for learning. We need them for navigating in the
Right.
world and all of that. And then yet there are times where it's so beneficial to try to step out of our minds and slow ourselves down enough to, as you say, to breathe, to feel ourselves, to come into some kind of presence or some kind of knowing that we're in a listening mood, whether that's listening to nature, listening to ourselves. And for me, it was learning that I have the ability to slow myself down and to listen to my gut, to listen to my heart, and that's kind of the first step to being able to follow those things, right? Mm-hmm. To really slow down and listen. And I guess what I would say is that I'm still practicing that, and I plan to practice that until the day I die, and that it does get easier, that we have these techniques we learn, breathing. Some of us love to just go for a walk in nature, or perhaps a yoga practice, a meditation practice. I know for me, and I know you love your Qigong practice as well. Mm-hmm. I know for me it was hard to just sit still at first. Moving meditation was a really wonderful vehicle for me. To learn how to quiet myself down. And so I would just say I'm still developing that muscle. I'm still practicing that. And yes, it does get easier because suddenly you realize that you effortlessly start to flip the switch, right?
Yeah.
So I hope that answers your question, Sarah. And anything else from our listeners that you'd like to ask?
I want to tag on a little something to what you said, Christina. And it was something about the idea of learning. Yeah. Like you were so used to where I jumped off to when I heard you say the word learning and talking about your experience was that I feel like with massage school, it sort of broadened my concept of learning. That, for so many of us, we're used to sitting at a desk and being lectured to and taking a test and reading, and that's how we learn. Yeah. But the experiential nature of massage school is just, it's opening up to something bigger.
I love that. And one more thing now I want to open thing, which is I know one thing that was such an awakening for me at the Florida School of Massage was when Paul Davenport said to me, well, Christina, one thing that happens here at the Florida School of Massage, and one thing you'll learn, is that education comes from inside of you.
Yeah.
It doesn't come from this thing outside, sort of like we were talking about intuition. It's not like this thing we can grab outside of ourselves, right? Yeah. It's this educational model that we are educating ourselves through this vehicle of touch and awareness. Yeah. And that was a profound switch in the way I thought about education in my young days. So
yeah, great point. I wanted to bring that in and forgot, and that's
good.
So good. Yeah.
Okay. Sarah, are you still with us? Anything else you want to ask before we start to wrap up?
Sure am. And given all that you said, there's still a question. I think it's a good question. Is are there any books that you recommend about intuition? And also there was another question. If you remember that book that you were talking about, Mary, that you read in college, both of those were questions that came up.
Yeah, the book in college, I think, was called Transpersonal Psychologies, and it was edited by Charles Tart. was something like that. I'm not sure of the exact title, but it's still sitting on my shelf. I just haven't read the title in a while. Books for intuition.
I can recommend a book. It's not exactly a book on intuition, but it's more a book, I would say a book for self-reflection. And it's by my friend and I Ching teacher. His name is William Horton. And the book, there's two books actually I'd like to recommend. One is called The Five Emanations, and the other one is called The Spiritual Basis of Good Fortune. So I'll just put those little teasers out as fun books during this time. And they're very inexpensive books and readily available on Amazon. And they're small books, and they're the kinds of books that you can leave on your coffee table or next to your growing pile next to the bed and continue to pick up over and over again as the years continue. And Mary, we have one more question for you that we thought it would be really fun at the end of our live streams to ask all the people we're talking to about what it means to live your life on your own terms, because it's a theme we talk about in school. And so we're just wanting to ask you what it means to you to live your life on your own terms.
Well, I go back to, I recently read what I wrote as I was getting out of college. It was a letter of intent that I had to write in order to get letters of recommendation from different professors. And what I said in the letter of intent was that I really want to go on and, work with people at the level of the mind, through some type of counseling in some way, but I also want to bring the body into it.
Yeah.
And I sort of saw different paths that I could go in. One direction would be to go on to graduate school and get my master's in clinical social work and go on and do an internship and get my, eventually get a position as a counselor, and then at some point bring in the body practices. The other was I don't remember what the middle track was, but the other track that was really catching my attention was to just dive into the massage stuff. And when I looked at the different tracks that I had laid out, one was very logical and methodical and sort of safe. And it was like widely accepted that that's the direction that a lot of people go in. But the track that really grabbed my attention was going into massage school. Even though I had no idea where that would lead me, I didn't know anybody that was a massage therapist practicing for any period of time. It wasn't the safe route. And so to me, living life on my own terms was actually going the route that grabbed my attention and not doing this idea that there's these steps that you have to do. So to me, that's how living my life on my own terms manifested. And I came to massage school. I fell in love with massage, and I lost any interest in going back to graduate school because there's so many directions you can go in the field of massage, so many different directions. And I knew I had a lifetime worth of learning in front of me. And I'm naturally curious. I naturally want to learn more. And this whole subject field has just grabbed me. Yeah. And following that, oh my God, that is so exciting. Like when I got out of massage school, I knew I wanted to do sports massage or structural integration. And I ended up choosing sports massage. Both of those, either one would have been great. And it's what led me to become a teacher at the massage school, because I was invited to become a teacher in the sports massage advanced training. It's how I sort of got my foot in the door. And I just kept following what I was interested in, and which eventually led me to cranial work. And cranial work is what's just got me. And I still want the structural integration piece.
Sure.
I think it's coming. I think it may happen.
Yeah.
But just following those pieces. So it's living life on my own terms. It's sort of, it's not being given it's not that there was a path that was laid out for me that I had to follow this way. It was like, allowing myself to be kind of like my dog with a squirrel. Oh my God, that is so cool. And just going for it. And then, oh, look at a butterfly. Let's go get that one, and just only those things that just really grabbed me. And so
that's wonderful. So believe it or not, Mary, our hour is just about up. And I just really want to thank you, Mary, and actually all of you so much for joining us today. It's been so fun and so exciting. And I'd just like to say, if you'd like to learn more about craniosacral work, you can email Mary. Is that okay, Mary? To just
that's fine.
Your email. It's actually Mary Reis at me.com. So that's MaryReis at me.com. And also, if you've enjoyed your time with us today, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the subscribe button below. And you can also hit the like button and share it with your friends. And you can also follow us and like this video on Facebook. These are all the new languages I'm learning. And if you'd like to learn more about our school, you can visit our website at theFloridaSchoolOfMassage.com. You can contact us there, and we would just be happy to connect with you and share more information and even set up a live call so we can see one another. And we'll be doing our next live stream 2 weeks from today on Thursday, May 21st at 1 o'clock with Jackie Ferber. And not only is Jackie a fellow instructor, but she's also a graduate of the Florida School of Massage and has been in private practice for an amazing 34 years and still going strong. And she just has a wealth of knowledge and experience, and I really look forward to talking with her about what lies beyond the technique and the detective work of massage. And so I hope you all can join us again. And I just want to say one more big thank you to everyone, especially Chrissy Martinez and Sarah Thompson, for all your behind-the-scenes help and support, and it's been such a joy to work together and be with everyone. And so until we see you again, until next time, stay safe, everyone. Be good to yourselves, be good to one another, and bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.